All right, I want to talk a little bit about these chock tracks on some of these rail cars. This is a pretty typical chock track, and what do you do with it, right? What the purpose of these chock tracks are for is all these chains would come up and hook on the different pieces of equipment to hold it down to the rail car. So now removing these are pretty simple. Here you will see, let me move it back a little bit. See these little things here. If I can show it to you. See, those just lock this into place. There's one over here as well, right? So you only need one side to lock into place. Once that bar is slid over, this thing won't move anymore, right? So in order to get these things to slide, you slide that over, okay? And then this would slide, and then you can just really this one has a notch. This thing's been notched out a little bit just when they really put these on, you know, they notch this out. But typically you'd want to cut the top of this off, and this thing will pop right off. So we want to remove this next one. Right, that's how it moves, and it'll slide right off. Okay. Now let me get on top. I bet we can find somewhere where they've, especially in the middle, where they maybe like right here. See how those have been heated up and bent? So you can heat those up, bend them all up, slide that chock into place, and then bend those back over. That's how they got those chock tracks on there. So you can imagine, instead of heating them up and bend them, just cut those off, slide that off, and take it off. Okay. You can see where they did that over here, right? Right over here, they did the same thing. Right here, right there, right there, right there. And you can see several places where they've heated it up and fed those things in. Okay. Usually they have this thing on the very end, so it doesn't allow you to take those chock tracks off. This car is a little different, where they do have that. You can slide that bar all the way across. This is kind of interesting here. I just passed by this. So these cars sometimes will have different things like this on the deck. They've been used for a lot of different reasons, a lot of different times, and that just gets left the way it is. So we won't knock any of that stuff off whenever we ship it off. It's not that big of a deal, we feel. So we leave that stuff on there. All right, something right over here that's been cut off. Right. So now this chock track, what do you do with it? You can leave it on there. It only sticks up about 2 inches off the deck, right? So you can either leave it on there or you can cut it off. Right? Cutting it off is a little labor intensive because it's welded on pretty well. I'm gonna hop down off this car again. All right, so typically you have this chock track, right? It looks just like that, and that's a very typical look to it. And you have this flat bar here. See that flat bar? It's like a 1/4 inch by 1 inch flat bar, and that's really what gets welded. The chock track gets welded to the flat bar gets welded to the deck. Okay, so if you wanted to cut this off, you actually need to cut all that weld off at all the flat bar here, right? Cut all this weld all the way off both sides, and then you just pry that off. And then there's another place right where the chock tracks butt up. Typically it's welded. That one, you can see the weld. Okay, you kind of see the weld inside here. Maybe welded inside here. A little bit of weld there. So when they get butted up, sometimes there's a little bit more weld. I like this one right here. See that? So these sections are kind of small. I don't know why they're so small on this one. Looks like that's only about 5 feet there. That's only about 2 feet on this section here. This is kind of a longer piece here. Starts here and it goes over here. So that's about maybe an 8 footer. And this one's not welded in there. It's kind of hit and miss. Right, so you'd want to cut all those welds off here. So get a torch, get a scarfing tip, right? That scarfing tip, instead of a straight tip, torch tip being straight, scarfing tip is a little bit bent like this, so you can set that on the deck and blow through there. Right? So that's what it takes to take the chock track off. As far as how much time it typically would take, I'm not the best torcher myself, but I've done it in about 10 hours. Just 10 hours straight, 2 5-hour days, right? Taking it all off. It's not fun, but you don't need any kind of special equipment. Just one guy or maybe two if you want to do it faster, and torch and pry bars and big sledgehammers and wedges. Because once you start, what the problem is you start cutting cutting that flat bar off, and you assume you cut all the way through. Maybe you're better at it than I am, but whenever I cut, sometimes I don't cut all the way through. And so now you're trying to pry this thing up and it's not wanting to go anywhere. So what I would do is I would start at one end, start cutting all the way down one stick, whatever the stick, this particular stick ends right about right there. Okay, so what I would do is I would start cutting all the welds on this side all the way down to wherever there it is right there. Okay, cut that. Then I would come back over here, cut this side all the way down. Okay, and by that point this thing should be free, but it never is. So you start getting a wedge, a pry bar or something. You got to hammer it inside there and start prying it and start seeing where you're caught at, right? And then go with the torch and start finding where you're caught at and clean that up. Then eventually this thing will pry up, right? So once you start prying this all up, it's just a matter of wedging it and keep on doing that. Take this first stick off, set it off to the side, and then do the same thing with the second piece. You start cutting it all the way down, cut it down that side, and then start prying it up and seeing where it's caught at. Sometimes you will get a few that will just pop right up, and it's like, man, this is a piece of cake. But don't get too cocky, because you are going to find a few that there's a weld you cannot see, you cannot find. You're wondering where in the heck is it at. So start on the front end. Like if I was doing that chock track, start at the front end here. After you finish cutting all the welds, get a wedge inside there and start prying it. Get a big hammer, don't get a small hammer, get a big hammer, biggest hammer you can get, and start pounding that wedge inside there and seeing where you're caught at. And then you'll break that free. And one person can take that chock track and pull it up out of the way and load it up on a truck. So that is a one-person job. Easy with two, but one person can do it pretty easily. All right, so if you're a torch ninja and if you can cut it all the way through, then more power to you. I want to see a video of that, see how you do that, because I'm not that good. But I'm sure there's somebody out there that can torch this chock track off without having any boogers left inside there. So that's all. Hopefully that was helpful.